All right, everybody, welcome to the brand new, fresh-smelling, fresh-scented, spring-scented Big Bears Beehooligans podcast. We are not live, not today. Today, this episode is being recorded, courtesy of...
But not in front of the live studio audience.
No, but we do have a recorded studio audience. Again, that would be probably Chris and some other people, a couple other people. Anyway, hey, Patreons! This is Big Bear. They call me Big Bear. My name is Tony Sandoval. But I call Big Bear because most people call me Bear. It's a nickname I have because A, I'm a large human, and B, it's my podcast. So I'm the Big Bear. Like the big cheese, the big head honcho, the Big Bear. That's me. And I haven't, because I used an S on the end of hooligans. It's Beehooligans. That means plural. There's more than me. And that would be because today we have another Beehooligan, a local one, right here in Omaha, Nebraska. And that's Chris Bettini, or Bettini.
Yep.
Not to be confused with a martini, but not too far off because you make beer, which also has two E's in it. And is like, just take the R off and is B anyway.
Beer. Yeah.
Do you pronounce it that way on purpose ever?
No.
Beer.
Maybe if I've had too many.
Okay, it wasn't that funny, but it was close. I like that. Welcome to the new podcast, or the new and improved podcast. Change the name. We're going to change a couple of the little things.
2.0 version.
I don't know. I've done this back and forth so many times. As far as I know, I could be on like
3.5
9 by now.
Yeah.
I don't know. But we're going with that. I like
3.78 repeating pi.
You made me lose track. All right. So anyway, a little bit about the podcast going forward here, just to keep you folks up and running so we can all go forward together. Okay. Me and Chris, also, like I said, one of our regular Beehooligans. We're here in Omaha, Nebraska, where I am based. I do the podcast, and I do presentations, live presentations, in addition to the classes I teach at various places. So through the presentations and this podcast, we're trying to bring awareness, information, and a whole lot of fun to you, who could be anybody who is either interested in bees or so bored you found nothing else worth listening to.
The paint was already dry.
Yeah, if the paint was already drying, you said, what the heck? Here's a couple of idiots, well, at least one that I know of, and I can't help myself. But anyways, well, here you go. There's our new podcast for you, okay? And Beehooligans, just in case you were wondering, Beehooligans are people who do their own thing. We don't necessarily, join the group, think on how to go about beekeeping. We pretty much cherry pick information and do what we want, how we want, based on our own personal goals, objectives, etc., where we have our bees, what kind of bees we have. We pretty much don't care what anybody else thinks. We have our goals and objectives, and that's what we're working on. Sometimes, because most of us really don't care, we have a lot of fun doing that. We have a lot of fun not caring and doing our own things together. So this is where people like me and Chris get along, because we help each other. He helps me, I come and help him, and we end up having fun.
I think you end up helping me more than I help you. But
oh no, trust me, you help me. You do. You help, if nothing else, usually you keep me going straight and focused. Sometimes not so much, but that's because I'm easily distracted. Apparently.
Squirrel.
What? Bee? Oh. Was that a bee? No, not a bee. That was a wasp. Go away, die, wasp. Anyway, so there you go. That's Beehooligans. And of course, so there you go. Actually, I just said it and I didn't even say it. Beehooligans are people who march to the buzz of our own buzz. Okay, I messed that up. But anyway, you get the idea. And there are a bunch of us who hang out locally and know each other, and not locally, like, a couple of my other Beehooligan buddies, JP the Bee-Man and Shawi and some other folks, Yappy. They're all in other states of mind as well as land. Regardless, we all hang out. Sometimes I'll talk them into coming in here on Skype, and they feel really sorry for me, and there's a lot of pity expressed, but they still join me anyway, and you'll get to hear them coming up. They're in some of the past episodes, so go to the website at www.beehooligans.com. Beehooligans.com. Yes, there's an it at the end of that. Beehooligans.com / Beehooligans, because I apparently don't know how to set up a domain right. So don't blame anybody but me when it's a weird way to get to the website. Or go to the Facebook page for Big Bears Beehooligans, or on MeWe, or on Twitter, or wherever else I am. And just find the link to the website and just click on the link and then bookmark that. It's a lot easier, really, but it's www.beehooligans.com / Beehooligans. And then you will find the archives. That's the old ones where JP and me and everybody else got on here and did some interesting stuff and had some fun. And the new ones are on Spreaker.com. If you go to Spreaker, Spreaker, Spreaker.com, you can find Big Bears Beehooligans. Just a quick search, or just type in / Big Bears Beehooligans. Better to just do the search, and then you'll say, oh, hey, look, there they are. And you can hear the new podcast episodes. And you can hear, because we're coming up, we're going to, twice a month we do the podcast, right? All right, Chris, here's how, because you're going to want to know this. Twice a month we're going to do the podcast. On the third Tuesday of every month, I'm going to put out a pre-recorded podcast like we're doing today. We are pre-recording this to be posted another time.
Like later today.
I could post it later today. I could post it for later next month. Either way, we're pre-recording it. Because the opposite to pre-recording is going to be the first Tuesday of each month, where we're going to do the podcast live.
From somewhere
that's got an internet connection that allows me to get to the internet. We're going to go live. And if you go to the Spreaker website page, you can register for free, no cost. You're not buying nothing. They're not doing anything. But it just allows you to see the little pop-up window. When you go to Big Bears Beehooligans page on Spreaker, you'll see a little pop-up window. And you click on that when it says live episode or live podcast. And you'll see that it's going currently. And there'll be a comment box. And you can type comments. And you can interact with us while we do the live podcast.
Make fun of us.
Mock us and call us names and make us cry. Or just jump in and be silly with us, whatever. But here's the gig. Okay, I got a special little extra because I've decided that Beehooligans, and since we brought Chris in, it's kind of Chris. He's part of. He's Italian, kind of like the Italian Bees, but he's more of the Chicago side, so a little more inland. You know what I'm saying? So we got an offer you just can't refuse. You know what I'm talking about there? Yeah, just like that, man. And so we got a little something. If you register, if you listen to the live podcast, get on and put a comment. I don't care if you put one comment. I don't care if you put 100 comments and interact with us, the whole time. Put in at least one comment, and your name will go in the jar, or, I don't know, an old smoker, one that doesn't burn stuff.
The bee bonnet.
Yes, yeah, something. It's going to go into a something. And we'll pull one of those names out, and we got prizes. Seriously, I got prizes, like an engraved hive tool, an autographed book by somebody who's actually worth having an autograph from. Not me, apparently, but that's okay. I'm collecting this stuff up, and I'm giving it to you for coming on the live podcast on the first Tuesday of each month, and bam! There you go. Just like that. You win cool stuff. Swag. Beehooligan swag. There you go. So now we know, Chris, you can come and hang out, and we might be here at Bee Teeny Gardens. You can see if you're a Patreon supporter. Patreon.com. Look for Big Bears Beehooligans again, and you will be able to, if you're at a certain level, see the video that accompanies this podcast, because we're showing you Casa de Bettini del de. How do they do that in Italian? Spanish, it might be, I don't know, de el, so of the. Italian, I don't know how y'all do it. Okay.
My grandpa's not here anymore.
See through the windows? Is that not cool? Okay, so you get to see that. You get to see us sitting here at the table, and you get to see me just making this stuff up as I go. So it works out, right?
Right, exactly.
And that's where we're all about having fun. Beehooligans, we do it our own way. We have fun while we do it, and we look good while we do. Well, okay, some of us do. Some of us are never going to look good, but that's okay. I'm still having fun. Yes, I did say me. I outed myself on it. In case you watching couldn't tell, I am not the attractive one, okay? Jeez.
Don't let the rest of your family know.
My wife already knew. It was pure pity, and I'll take it. But anyway, nothing but pity. And I don't mind. So that's the way we're going with the podcast, my friends. We're going, and we're going to have some fun, and we're going to talk about stuff. And some of it's going to be having fun. Some of it's going to be just kind of, actually serious. We're going to do like Science Corner. We'll talk about some cool science stuff, and we're going to go from there. Matter of fact, before we go anywhere, though, we have some Beehooligans already, some on Patreon who have hit that certain level. Yay, us! We have a couple of people who are supporting on Patreon.com who are helping us to support the effort here. And as promised, you guys, you folks, you people, Patreon people, get a shout out during the podcast because we love you. Actually, I'm so thankful and grateful to you. So, first one, Randy Blackburn. Randy, if you're watching this, hi. Tell Randy hi, Chris.
What's up, Randy?
Randy's been a supporter of the podcast literally before day one. Him and Sharon have been awesome supporters of it's just been beyond belief. And thank you so much. Okay. And then, of course, one other guy currently on the books at being at that level or higher is this dude who does he runs this really cool vacation business thing where people who make beer because he makes beer. And I mean, he makes beer. And then he takes people on vacation to see more beer. Not just here, though, but in other countries, like in Germany, in Holland, Netherlands, and stuff like that. You might know this guy, Chris, because it's you.
Hey, yes.
Chris is the beer guy. And he's a bee guy. He's a beer guy.
Exactly.
With a beard.
There's a lot of bees.
I'm making this up as I go. You can tell I'm tired. Anyway.
Yes, my Pub Culture Beercations is newly formed out of one of my other hobbies besides gardening and beekeeping, which is beercationing, as I like to call it.
Beercationing.
Traveling places around, like you said, the United States, the world, to not only immerse yourself in the local pub culture, but to also see things that make that part of the country and world more than just a brewery or a beer bar, but what all goes together in that area, and it's really fun. And so it's a way for me to not only get that name out, but to be able to support you with all of the things you do to help me as a newbie beekeeper. So
that's awesome.
Glad to be a supporting member. You've definitely
more
helped me
so,
out.
I have been able to con you to sit here with me and do these things, and I like that even more.
Well, it's only fair. On my last beercation this April, while I was gone, my 2 bee packages arrived.
Yep.
And Tony was gracious enough to say, "Yeah, I'll pick them up and install them for you." But there was a caveat. And
hey, back to the Chicago tradition. I got an offer for you. I got a deal for you here.
Yeah, and it only made sense because in the past, when you were doing a different formula of the bee educating, when you would do the one-on-ones for an hour
I used
of time,
to charge for it,
and it was an invaluable service for people like me who learn best from hands-on. But when you switch it over to the monthly Patreon membership, I thought, what better than to have a bee hooligan knowledgeable person on retainer, if you will.
I'm going to shift gears. I was planning on doing a much larger, a bigger Science Corner thing, if you will. I'm going to touch on Science Corner, but I'm going to shrink that down because I think this is going to be more interesting. There's going to be a lot more fun, I think, because beer and bees, because not only do they share ease, but because you have the unique experience of a guy who makes beer, and you're a guy who drinks beer, and you're a guy who has bees, and you talked about all the bees together, all the BEEs. How or has being a beer guy affected your beekeeping or your approach to bees has bees affected your beer thing?
I think actually started off as I just enjoy gardening.
Yeah, you're a big garden. Those of you again, if you're watching on Patreon, look at that awesome garden he's got.
Raised beds, and I thought, wait,
hold on, I'm going to interrupt you again because I want. You call this very beautiful garden, but you call it
Bettini Farm.
Bettini Farm.
I like to consider myself an urban farmer, if you will, a backyard gardener.
Sweet.
And I thought I also like to. I'm a very conservative person in the sense that not only on those ways that we might have our differences, but on the ways that people have their in commonalities. I'm a huge recycler. I like to compost what I can. I like to put very little garbage into the world. And so in turn,
conservation is also big to you as well.
Yeah, and so I thought, well, if I like to garden and bees pollinate things, not knowing that honeybees are not big garden pollinators like your other local pollinators and natural pollinators, the mason bees and the honeybees and all those, which we still love, or the bumblebees, I should say. But I thought, honeybees would be great because I use in my trying to eat healthy, not as much regular sugar. I use a lot of honey, and I buy a lot of local sourced honey. And honey's not the cheapest ingredient. Yep. And so part of my thought was, I could get bees that would pollinate my garden, and I could get honey.
And get honey.
And then I realized they don't really like that, so I've had to reevaluate and add a lot more flowers and pollinator things to my gardening, which has changed a lot of the way things look around the yard, but that's great. So I was able to add honeybee conservation in, and the way that it goes with my beer stuff is, as somebody who's in the craft beer world, fermented beverages are part of that, and beer is one of the oldest fermented beverages on the planet.
Right.
Really, only superseded by one other fermented beverage on the planet.
We're going somewhere with this,
which is mead. Mead, which comes from honey,
fermented.
So it was kind of a interesting progression. And
so does that mean? I'm sorry. Yes, to interrupt you because that's the way my brain works. I'm sorry. But does that mean you've become more of a mead aficionado?
No, there's not a lot of it yet to get into, so I'm learning where I find some, and I've had some. There are types of beer that use honey in it. One's called a braggot, which 50% of the fermented sugars comes from honey, as well as the other 50% from your malted grains. Okay. So there is ways that all comes together. But as far as the way it has affected each other for me is really more on my hobby side of my gardening, and it allows me to be more approachable in that. But when I travel, now I see things that I would never have noticed before. I've found honeybee hives all around the world where I never would have seen them before because I know what I'm looking for now. Right. So, for example, I was in Antwerp, Belgium at an Ibis hotel, and they actually have in their little courtyard beehives, and they have fresh honey on the breakfast table from their own hives. Or I was in Gouda, which most people pronounce Gouda. Yeah, it's Gouda cheese. It's Gouda. Okay. But I was in that town, and we're sitting at a little beer bar, and on a balcony above it, I'm like, oh look, there's bees. Now in the past, I probably would have been like, oh God, there's bees. Panic! Yeah, because you think they're going to come mess with you and try to fly, and so it has changed. I think for me, what honeybee keeping has done is it's made me more observant as I travel.
Well, okay, now here's something though. It has, because I keep up with you on like all 30 forms of social media, and we talk to each other via phone and whatnot. I know that just recently there was a local thing, because there's a zoo-related group that does a thing once a year that's got something to do with beer and fundraising for pollinating bees. Yeah. You participated in that.
Yes, so the local chapter of the Association of Zookeepers from the Omaha Henry Doorly Zoo, they do a yearly fundraiser to raise money for different bee groups for honeybee conservation. Right. And they partner with local breweries, and they partner where my main job at the Crescent Moon Ale House for a location to hold a yearly buzzed for bees.
Get buzzed.
And you get buzzed.
Get buzzed for bees.
And you help the bees.
Zookeepers are trying to get people drunk.
Yeah, for a good cause.
For a good cause.
So
okay,
they
what's a good cause? Where does the money go?
I cannot, off the top of my head, remember which groups they were partnered with.
So they're not keeping it; they're donating it themselves.
They're raising money to, I think it was 2 or 3 different bee conservation groups.
Okay, oh, that's cool. That's cool.
And only way you helped out was to show up and enjoy beer,
fermented beverages,
and things that were made with honey. So the local breweries used honey to make some different beers. One of the breweries, Infusion Brewing Company, actually got honey, but they used a secondary ingredient, and you'll have to go to the local chapter to find out the exact details, or check with Infusion. They somehow let the bees, by what they were picking the most of the pollen from, choose which additional ingredient went into that beer.
Oh.
So there was like elderflower and different things, and they said, okay, which one is the most popular right now? And they actually added the bees' favorite ingredient to that beer as well. So, I think cool. In general, people who are in that craft beer world, we're a little bit more grounded, in the sense that what I always tell people when I'm traveling, when you sit down at a beer bar, as opposed to a whiskey or wine or champagne, it's a little more common man folk.
Right.
The guy to the left of you could be making 10 times more money than you make. The guy to the right makes 10 times less, but for the price of that pint of beer, which is more affordable than most beverages, you're all equal for the next 20, 30 minutes, and you find out the world's a lot smaller.
That is cool. That's a good thing, and I find the same thing, and I think you said you have too, about beekeeping. You can go sit somewhere in a group like us, and who knows who is sitting next to each other, and it doesn't matter because we're just talking about bees.
Yep. And I have made a lot of friends through keeping bees that I didn't know. In fact, the first person who helped mentor me in getting bees, Matt Noble.
Yo, Matt!
Yeah, really. Shout out to
Shout out to Matt.
I thought I wanted to add bees to my garden.
Right.
Working within the bar industry, there was a former meadery here in Omaha called Moonstruck Meadery.
Uh-huh.
Moonstruck, the guy in charge of there, I said to him, I go, hey, I want to put bees in my garden. What do you think? He said, you need to contact the Omaha Bee Club. They've got a mentoring program. So I contacted them. They took down my information. They threw it in their email. And Matt was a regular customer at the bar. He was already a friend of mine on Facebook. I didn't even know he kept bees.
Right.
But he had seen how I like to keep an organic garden. I don't use pesticides. And he said, I know Chris. I know how he gardens. I think I can trust putting one of my hives on his property. So that was how that all started. So when you chat over a beer, you never know what's going to happen. You might end up with bees. You might end up with new friends. You might end up traveling. So yeah, that's how it all kind of came together for me. So yeah.
Okay, now bees, beer, got that whole connection there. We got all that, and you got your beer vacations, and you got all that going on. You got what? 3 hives going right now.
I have 3, and the city permit for my house is for 4 hives.
So for 4.
So I started 4 years ago roughly, and I got my first hive was Matt's that he put on the property. Then a year later, I bought my own equipment. That one is he's a very minimalist when it comes to the bee needs to survive. I'm not going to do a lot of the extra.
He's kind of like me then.
Yes.
We don't.
You guys are both in the same mindset.
That big highfalutin.
Yeah. So the first one, the location in the yard didn't get as much sunlight. They didn't get active as much in the morning. They didn't create enough storage. They didn't make the winter. I learned a lot. We moved it the next year to a new location. My plan was, I figured, this will be easy. Keeping bees, that's got to be the easiest thing in the world. You just got to not get stung, and it'll be great. I'll get the first one, and then we'll get split it the next year, and I'll have my second one that the permit says, and then I'll split 2 of them, and we'll make it into 4 of them, and math is like math, and next thing you know, I'll have 4 hives, and it'll be wonderful. Of course, the second year, I installed the moisture board wrong, and thankfully you're a kind mentor, and you didn't tell me I was an idiot. You said accidents happen, and we'll go from there. Then I bought a second nuke the 3rd year, and it was going great, and we get into fall, and it looked like they did a late fall swarm, and I didn't catch it in time to put the reducer in.
Right.
There wasn't enough protective opening. The wasps went in, wiped out who was left, and ate all the honey. Darn it. then I thought, okay, we're going to do this right this year. I'm going to start with 2. I got my 2. But every year I was buying another hive set till I had my 4 pieces of equipment.
Right.
And so now I started off this spring, bought my 2 bees, packages of bees, and you installed those for me. Everything's going great. And I had a swarm move into one of my third swarm move into one of the 4 hives that I had there, which was very cool. I remember I first thought, are these guys just going next? What if let's go?
See, and that's why I hate you, because I never get that kind of luck. I'm the guy that goes around and I help everybody else, and the bees never come, just move into my equipment. But you guys just go right on in.
I was more free bees. I couldn't believe it happened. I think Mother Nature said you've had 3 years of...
I don't really hate you, Chris.
I know.
It's a joke.
I've had 3 years of...
I'm envious.
Yeah, right? 3 years of mistakes and failures, and I think Mother Nature said, all right, we see you're serious, so we're going to go ahead and pay you back for one of those lost hives. Here's a freebie.
Little bee karma.
Yeah, a little bee karma. So I've got my 3 out of my 4 hives now operating. I'm still learning a lot. I don't know everything I need to know, and so that's where being part of this is very helpful.
So I'm sitting here, and we're talking about bees, and we've got a podcast happening here, and I'm sitting here, and as you guys can see that are watching the video, a bee guy and a beer guy, and yet I have no bee beer in front of me.
Well,
because he's that way. It's okay though, because I don't drink. I'm giving him a hard time because I don't drink, so it doesn't matter. It's just me starting trouble. But
I actually have in my cellar a couple of beers I brought back from the Netherlands out of around Maastricht that actually is made with some honey. So that's awesome. Yeah.
He's got it. He just won't share it with me.
And there was he
won't waste it with me because I won't drink it.
I would share it with you, but yeah. And then when I was just out in San Diego about a week and a half ago at a brewery called Duckfoot Brewing Company, they had a beer called "Drink Me or the Bees Die."
Oh my!
And
no pressure there, right?
Yeah, it's all proceeds of that goes towards conservation. So of course that was what I had to drink when I was there.
Of course.
So it is kind of cool to see some of that with the travels and things.
Now, I'm getting into this because you do travel. You got your beecations or beercations. Thank you. And you typically when you travel, you tend. I know you just went to what was it, L.A. recently?
I was in San Diego.
Okay. But I know you also go to Europe.
Yeah, and then April I was across the Netherlands with a group of 17 people for 12 days.
Okay, so that's awesome. But now, you talked earlier about it makes you more aware and whatnot. But do you notice? Okay, like when we're here and you hear all of us talking, you and me and some others have sat around talking about how to go about building awareness and all this about bees and what's the pros and the cons and the facts and the alarmism and how is it different in Europe? Is it different? Is it pretty much the same kind of levels of drama and back and forth as it is here, or are they more calm about it? Are they more blown out about it? How do they go about?
From what I've seen, I think it's about the same as here. You got people who are
because the American media really kind of portrays Europe as super hyper, save the bees or all mankind is going to die in 30 days. I mean, the American media really presents Europe as being hyper sensitive, hyper alarmist about it. And as you and I both know, media pretty much anywhere, that's what they do, is be alarmist.
They gotta sell.
They're selling commercials, really, and so they're going to get people's attention any way they can, and they think that's the best way. I don't understand anything, but anyways, but I know that that's not always the truth. So being a guy who's been there and being more sensitive and aware of bee issues, when you're over there, are you seeing and hearing a lot of the kind of news stories and commercials and things like
not
we
really.
do here?
I think what I noticed was seeing things like the hotel in Antwerp we were at that actually had their own beehives.
Right. And
they had a sign that said, bees are dying out and we need to, and so here's our way of doing our thing. When I was at the Kokenoff Tulip Gardens this spring, and they had some of those old basket-looking beehives set up.
Right.
I don't know, that looks weird.
The sun hive kind of thing?
Yeah.
Upside down egg?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's called a sun hive.
Looks just like it's made of wicker almost,
Yep.
I'm like, how do you get the honey out of that thing? And
they're actually pretty cool.
Are they?
Yeah, because the bottom, the big part, which looks like the bottom of the egg, that part comes off.
Okay.
And vice versa, the bottom can come off too. So it's really interesting. But anyway,
I've met some other people just in hanging out, having a conversation. Somehow, I love my garden. I even keep honeybees. Oh, you keep bees. It's kind of an interesting. So and so, and I see probably more so. People are willing to deal with bees around them in Europe, where here everything's a wasp and it's going to sting you.
Oh, I see. Okay, well,
so they tend to be, I think, a little bit more cohabitative.
Okay,
over there, and
more tolerant.
Yeah, but I think I don't really notice it as much as some of the other stuff, though.
Okay. Well, like I said, it's just kind of one of the things that made me curious, and you actually kind of got to be there in order to really appreciate.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, if you just rely on what we see here, you're going to get not accurate information.
Right. Exactly.
And because that's what happens. It's interesting to see how that kind of stuff goes. I was gonna try to find some smooth way to segue into our science corner, but there is no smooth way because I'm not smooth.
There kind of is.
What's that?
There's the science of beer. There's the science of bees.
Okay, well, and to do that, we're going to talk. Okay, we're going to be talking about queens though. So how are we going to abrogate that? How are we going to slide that in there? We just did. I just did.
You found a way to.
I didn't even realize I was doing it. That's pretty not slick, but it's going to do. Anyways. Science corner.
Science corner.
And, I'm going to make a little background.
She blinded me with
science. She blinded him with science. We're going to have a little thing just for the brief seconds there. We're science corner, bee science, something like that.
Science.
Yes. You threw me off. See, you're supposed to keep me on track. This is why you're here.
Yes.
Queens.
Yes.
Natural queen reproduction. Because a lot of beekeepers, we teach classes, we learn how to, in managed hives, how to get more queens, how to raise queens, how to requeen, and so in a managed system, we learn about very specific things. But to me, and like you said, guys like Matt, because Matt's awesome, and not just because you agree with me on these kind of things, Matt, but you collect mushrooms, and while I find mushrooms disgusting, I've seen your videos, and you're very happy about finding mushrooms, and I think that's cool.
His little son is
I know.
Forrest is just as excited. That little
guy, he's like a mushroom magnet, that kid, man.
Yeah.
He finds them where... Anyway, I digress again.
Yeah, right?
But anyways, you have to know more about how bees really behave on their own in a feral or natural situation outside of being managed to really start to appreciate and understand how they do it, what they do, why they do. This is part of the knowledge, part of learning, and being prepared. For example, and just real quick, there's some keywords, because my big thing with Science Corner is to introduce people with concepts, general ideas, terminology, so that when you go read like the really big, actual, real science stuff, like in the article, like in Bee Culture magazine, Clarence Collison writes a big science column there. American Bee Journal, you got Randy Oliver. He writes some great articles there if you're not going to his website. But a lot of people will kind of just, their eyes will glaze over because they'll see words and
terms,
science words that, big word, eye glaze.
Latin-looking words.
Flip the page. Look, there's,
a
picture of a hive or a hive tool, and we move on. But a lot of that information is there because they want to share critical, fact, evidence-based information with us that'll help make us better beekeepers. And so many people that I talk to, I'll be like, oh yeah, there was an article on that in Bee Culture at this point. Did you see that? Because I know they got, I glanced over it, which to me says, yeah, I just flipped past it. Because they don't read the science stuff. And a lot of it is because they're not comfortable reading it. They're not familiar with terminology. They find it boring, whatever. So let's use the Science Corner in here just to kind of touch on some things like on natural queen rearing. It's important to know that queens colonies, because a colony is one entity. It's not just a box of 30, 40, 50,000 bees. All those bees are part of a singular entity, the colony. It's a superorganism.
The Borg.
So, like the Borg. The Borg imitate that when they got to Star Trek. So it's one... They all participate in a shared knowledge.
Right.
Okay, so it's the one hive mind. Each one of them contributes
sees something
to that.
They all could know about.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like the Matrix.
And they all bring it back in and forth. 40,000 bees go out, and they all come back, and yet eventually all the colony knows it at some point. So it's a singular entity. And the colony reproduces. People think, well, there's baby bees because they come out of eggs. The queen lays eggs and blah, blah, blah. And so you have multiple individual bees. Well, yeah, that's reproduction. But the colony as a singular entity, as a superorganism, reproduces itself, almost like cellular division. It splits the colony. We call that a bee swarm. Literally, the old queen takes about half of the workers, older, the ones that are out and flying, and they divide the colony. And they'll make new queens, and one of the new queens, the bestest, firstest, baddest one of all, she'll emerge, and if there's any others that haven't emerged yet, she kills them all. Or if there's some that emerge at the same time, they literally duel it out. So again, the toughest one, the best one wins, and she takes over the old home nest, while Queen Mama, who started everything, maybe, or was at least the predecessor to her, leaves and starts
moves into my box.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yes. So, how do they go about raising those queens? Well, first of all, terminology-wise, we're going to use two words, okay, that help us to understand what's going on. Okay, the first word is, and I'm going to look it up because I don't want to mispronounce it again like I did the last time. The first one is monogynous, okay? Basically meaning one queen, one reproductive female for the whole colony. And they are in a state of monogamy for most of their life. There's only the one egg layer, okay?
When would that not be the case?
Well, there's 3 times, and they're all doing with replacement, obviously. It's not just because they want to make new ones. It's always to replace the queen. So you got an emergency situation. Something's wrong. Queen dies. She's injured dramatically. She just disappears, gets lost. I don't know. And she
accidentally squish her, put in the frame.
Yeah, you just could be a number of things.
Some sort of an invasion. Something goes in and gets her.
She gets ill and dies. A pest, a predator gets in there.
Now, if she gets ill, is that still considered sudden, or is that something like long term?
I think it depends on the nature, how fast acting it is. Okay. Because if it gives them any time at all to prepare, and that leads us to supersedure. The second condition, supersedure, is when they have some foreknowledge of the queen failing or the queen's going to fail. Yeah. They decide, we're going to prepare for her demise and make some new queens.
They don't take her out, though.
Not necessarily, no.
The new queen might.
The new queen that they make probably will. But the bees themselves...
basically, because it's like a clone, she'll go take herself out.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's depending on the genealogy. So you got the emergency in case of an emergency, and you have a supersedure in case she's foreseeably going to be not functioning. And then, of course, you have, which I mentioned earlier, the swarm. In those conditions, in the last two, supersedure and swarming, the bees know ahead of time they need a new queen. And that allows them time
to prepare
to be more selective to get the best queen. In an emergency situation, they just got to go hard, fast, and quick. We need a new queen, and we got a very short time to get the best to replace her.
And why do they have such a short time?
Well, because you got different conditions in which the age of the colony, the age of the queen, how long it takes a new queen to get mated. You've got the average workers' ages are only about 6 weeks, and it takes time for that cycle to go over. So you'll literally have bees dying in the time frame.
So the numbers of the colony are going down,
diminishing
before the new one can make something.
Right, and so they got to make the most of that time before they don't have enough bees.
Ready to go.
Right. So in that emergency situation, timing is critical. Research has shown that within 48 hours, their new selections have been made and they're done choosing.
Does that mean that?
And so whatever the best ones happen to be,
if that first one is not the best one, it may also weaken the hive.
It's going to be the best of the bunch.
Okay.
And what will happen a lot of times is they'll get her, they'll get a queen to come out of that emergency situation, and then they'll begin preparations to supersede her.
Oh, so there could be two things at once. You could have an emergency replacement while they're also planning the actual...
Once that new one gets up and starts laying eggs...
So that they can keep their numbers up.
Right.
But she's not that good.
She's not that good, and they know she's not that good.
We got to get rid of this one.
Boom.
That was a bad clone.
It's brutal to live in a colony. Okay? So, yeah, it really is.
Okay, so you have the three...
Those are the main three conditions. And what we've learned about that, like I said, is bees don't do this on accident. This is not something they just haphazardly do.
Millions of years of evolution.
The evolution, man, they have adapted and figured out how to bring the best queens out because of selection, because they're looking for a certain age. They prefer to have eggs that are older eggs or younger larvae, like eggs that are a day and a half or so, 2 days, 2-3 day old eggs, or less than 3 day old larvae tend to be the best queens.
When they lay an egg, how long does it take for an egg to hatch?
Well, you're talking an egg is 3 days. But it takes a queen 16 days.
Right, but so that when the queen lays the egg, you're talking 3 days before it hatches into a larva.
Right.
Now, they choose somewhere within those 3 days whether they're going to make that one. Will they also sometimes choose after it's hatched if it's going to become a queen?
Sometimes they're in that. Sometimes that's all they have.
They have to go with a larva.
Because they don't have a choice. Because, again, like that emergency situation, she stopped laying maybe, and all they have left is the last one she had, the last batch, and they've already
hatched and
came out of the egg.
So for superseding or for when they're planning for a swarm, they're going to start with an egg. Where the other, they may take an older egg or a young larva and then start its procedure to make it into a queen.
Right.
Okay.
It's like I said, so this is no accident. Bees plan this stuff out. They know what they're doing. A lot of people, we'll see practice cells. People think all year long they're making practice cells, and bees are crazy. What are they doing making queens and blah, blah, blah? Heck, man, they'll make queens, especially if they're looking to supersede or a swarm. They'll make a batch of new queens, and just before they're about to emerge, or even after some of them do emerge, they'll wipe them all out because they don't like any of them. They'll start all over again.
The workers will take out the
worker gone. Okay? It's planned. It's very intentional.
Okay.
So knowing that, when we go into our queens and our hives, knowing all that information, we can know better timing-wise. Okay, if I find my queen, my hive is queenless. I know my queen's only, my colony has so much time. And by using this information about how they do things and the timing, we can do better maybe at planning and replacing queens or making our own new queens because we understand those time frames and whys and hows they go about that. And that's why we do, like, again, Science Corner. We want to help you get a basic understanding of the concept of some of these things. So, yes, bees are crazy, but bees are not stupid.
Okay.
That's about it. I'll never deny they're crazy. Bees are absolutely freaking nuts compared to humans. But they are smart. They know exactly.
Are they predictable even if they're crazy?
They can be. Predictably crazy. They very much can be. We just don't know why they're doing it. Like, we see you do it all the time, but I still don't know why would you do that. You're killing me. You're killing me, Smalls. But okay. We got like about a minute left here. So we're going to wrap that up. Science Corner, thank you for everybody at the Public Foundation of Nobody, because nobody else gave me money.
Tony, if somebody wanted to get more on this queening things, where would you recommend? Do you have something on the website about it?
You can go find a lot of this on the information on the website. But I remember, February 2014 edition of Bee Culture magazine, Clarence Collison wrote his article is called A Closer Look. So if you go to February 2014 Bee Culture magazine, he's got a great article on. Okay. I mean, really detailed about that.
And if they had other questions beyond that, can they email you?
They can contact me on social media, email, here, through all kinds of ways. Cool. I'm always accessible. And like I said, you guys, Beehooligans.com /BB Beehooligans for the archives.
Facebook.
Spreaker.com. Facebook is Big Bears Beehooligans. Got our own page. You go there sometimes.
I'm there quite a bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're always accessible. And that's. I hope you guys had some fun. I know we changed a little bit around just because we found more fun things to talk about. You guys, stay tuned, because after you hear this episode, the very next one is the live episode on the first Tuesday, April 7th.
August 7th.
August 7th. Bye!